Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much, Dev. I'm very pleased to be here.
Thanks for coming around. Before we go on to specific questions, I would like you to share your background and experience and how your life has evolved.
Sure. It's a very interesting question. And when I reflect, my pathway to this point doesn't seem very logical. My accent, first of all, is Canadian, so I grew up in Canada.
Yeah, which part?
That's even in itself a bit of a difficult question. My father was in the military, so we moved around quite a bit when I was younger, but I was fortunate to spend most of my formative years in Northern Ontario, about 400 kilometers north of Toronto. And
so you've gone off Toronto. You're not calling it Toronto anymore?
No, I call it Toronto now. You noticed, Deb.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I've also spent quite a bit of time in Vancouver, and in Vancouver, people call Toronto. It's a minor difference in the Canadian accent from west to east. Yes. Yeah. I thought I was going to be an architect, and I actually got into architecture school, and 6 months into architecture school decided that I wasn't going to be an architect anymore for various reasons, and consequently thought, well, I'll really challenge myself, and I decided to do a double major in biology and chemistry.
Goodness me.
For the next 4 years. And about 3 or 4 years into that degree, realized that probably wasn't going to be my long-term career either, but I stuck it out, and I thought I'll get the degree and then figure out what to do next. I was fortunate in my high school years to spend time here in Australia as an exchange student, and that was very formative for me as well. Gave me a taste for what other cultures and places are like. And finishing university, I came straight back for another year and decided, you know what, this is actually where I want to live. But it wasn't as straightforward as that, so spent a few years working in my professional space of biochemistry, and in the meantime worked towards migrating to Australia, which I did in 1994. Coming here to Australia gave me an opportunity to kind of start afresh in some ways and go, well, what do I really want to do? And what I really wanted to do was an MBA at that point. So I did an MBA while I was working. And from that point, was able to move into a general management and management consulting career for about 12 or 15 years, which I got a great deal of satisfaction out of, working across numerous industry sectors and having insight into really significant insight into workplaces through that experience. But the most rewarding element of that experience was working within the disability sector. So I ended up with quite a strong portfolio of disability sector clients. And this is pre-NDIS. But what I could see from everybody that I interacted with was the passion and the drive that people had working in that sector, whether they were at an executive level, a management level, or a frontline support worker level. And I had exposure to people at all those levels in that work. I hit, I suppose, my midlife career crisis about 8 years ago. And I thought, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing anymore. What do I want to be doing? And I took a step back and took 3 months to really kind of just explore opportunities. I was lucky to have that freedom. And I kept getting drawn back to the not-for-profit sector, and in particular the disability sector. And I was fortunate to be offered a role in a disability services organization and step into that role and realize that this was my place. I think it probably in some respects for me was the first significant opportunity to understand my purpose at, a later point in my life. And to understand how it aligned, how the work was aligning to my principles and my values in a way that was different than it had previously. So 4 years in that organization, and that was during the beginning stages of the transition to the NDIS when we weren't sure whether it was going to be WA NDIS or NDIS, and doing a lot of work within that organization to lead the change that was required. And then an opportunity 4.5 years ago to join Uniting Care West at that point in time to lead the same sort of transformation of their programs. And again, broadened my horizons. I went from being in an organization that was strictly focused on supporting people with disability to an organization that really supports people who are at a disadvantage or living in entrenched disadvantage or hardship as a consequence of circumstances that in the vast majority of cases are no cause of their own. Yeah. And I've been very fortunate on this journey at Uniting Care West and now Uniting WA to transition from a role to support our mental health and disability services to transition to the NDIS to overseeing all of our services as the Chief Operating Officer, and to now being appointed just recently one of the co-CEOs of the organization.
Lovely.
Which is an incredible opportunity to really lead purpose in an organization.